Joining us now from London is our UK correspondent, Jonathan Sacerdoti. Jonathan, as we just heard from Mr Corbyn, Prime Minister May had said repeatedly there wasn't going to be a general election. What changed yesterday?
Well, Prime Minister May will have seen those polls which showed that the Conservative Party was so far ahead that the temptation must have got to her to hold snap elections. That, combined with the fact that people have been saying for some time that she had no real mandate for what they're calling a hard Brexit. She believes that with that strong majority that she might gain now in an election, she'll be able to go to Europe and negotiate for a tough British deal that will see Britain doing well, and she'll be able to say that she has the country behind her.
Jonathan, you just said that the polls are showing that the Conservatives are on course for a very large victory over Labour. How large a victory?
Well, polls at the moment are showing that the Tories could be in line for a 140-seat majority, which is enormous. We'll be seeing in that case a Conservative government which is stronger than any since perhaps the 80s. That's because the Labour Party is considered to be very weak at the moment, and the Liberal Democrats in the last election were rather punished by the voters for playing a part in the coalition government in which they sat alongside the Conservative members of Parliament and betrayed, some say, many of their promises that were made. For example, those not to increase tuition fees for students at university.
Jonathan, Prime Minister May accused Parliament earlier of blocking Brexit and saying that she needed a personal mandate in order to push this through. But from what we've seen, Parliament voted it through. It even passed the Lords. Is that the real reason why Theresa May is interested in elections, or is that really just a cover for partisan advantage?
Well, the more cynical, of course, are saying that indeed this is just Theresa May's way of wiping out the opposition. She knows that she'll probably come back much stronger with the Conservative government here, and that really this has nothing to do with people blocking Brexit, because, as you say, the government has voted, the Parliament voted in favour of triggering Article 50, as did the House of Lords. She maintains, though, that they've promised to put more obstacles in her way during the next 2 years, and that they might vote against the final deal that she is planning to come back from the negotiations with. So she says this will give her the strength to act more decisively in favour of how she sees Brexit taking place.
Jonathan, I want to take a look forward at the election campaign we have ahead of us. 50 days is very long in British terms. What surprises might we expect? Well, they're surprises, we can't expect them, but what surprises might come on the way?
It seems that this election is likely to be all about Brexit, but there are, of course, still other concerns, and the Labour Party will be trying to push at those. They'll be trying to emphasise issues of justice and equality for people who are living and struggling, they say, with austerity and cuts that the Conservative government is making. But Mrs May knows that Mr Corbyn has not done well in polling and is not seen as a viable option for a Prime Minister by many people in the country, as well as by many of his own MPs.
Jonathan,
which means that she's going to concentrate.
On that specifically, how are Labour MPs going to be campaigning up and down the country when so many of them have voted no confidence against their party leader?
But that's a question many Conservative supporters are asking. How can people be campaigning for Mr Corbyn as a Prime Minister when they themselves voted against him being the leader of their party only last year? That's a tough one for them, but in actual fact, considering it's rather well accepted that they're likely to remain in opposition, perhaps they will be quietly campaigning to strengthen the opposition but not to win the election. Rather a strange position for people to be campaigning for. Also, they might be expecting a disaster for Labour so that they can regroup in the coming years without Corbyn as leader. But of course, none of them will admit to doing that right now.
Jonathan, on that specific question of leadership, which the Prime Minister has said she wants to frame the debate around, we heard earlier that the Prime Minister isn't planning on taking part in the televised leadership debates. How is that being received in Britain?
Well, those televised leadership debates have become a feature of recent elections, but they are relatively new still in the UK, and some prime ministers have not been too keen on them. Theresa May is obviously one of them. She's somebody who controls her media appearances very carefully, not necessarily seeking as much attention in the media as some others have done in recent years. So that'll be one reason why she doesn't feel she needs to do that. She came in for criticism on that decision from Jeremy Corbyn and also from Tim Farron, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Some will say that it shows her as being weak. She believes probably that it shows her, quite the contrary, being strong, and that she doesn't need to get involved in the entertainment style of the debate that will be taking place on television. She says she'll be debating the issues up and down the country for people to hear and within the House of Commons, as she did today in Prime Minister's Questions.
Jonathan, there's another player that's involved here in this game. It's not just the Conservatives, Labour and the Scottish National Party. There are the Liberal Democrats. Now, of course, they shrank to just 9 seats in the last election. How are they taking their pro-European message into this election? How are they planning to start their fight back?
In some respects, the Liberal Democrats seem the best prepared of the opposition parties for this debate and this fight. They say that they are quite squarely against Brexit in some senses. Obviously, nobody is saying they will back out of Brexit, but the Liberal Democrats seem to be the Remainers' choice. They will try and impede Brexit in any way they can, and they will ultimately probably try to overturn it through votes in another referendum or another election further down the line that will give people a sort of second chance. They'll be hoping that that will see them bolster their presence in the House of Commons after that disastrous general election for them only 2 years ago. It remains to be seen whether the electorate will forget the things that they disliked about the Liberal Democrats after their part in the last government and vote for them if they are Remainers in order to impede the progress of Brexit.
Jonathan Sacerdoti in London, thank you very much.